Good afternoon and thanks for joining us. I'm Judy Simpson. If you're a student, back to school can mean new classes, new friends, maybe even a new school. Now imagine you're a teacher and you're teaching in a new school. One of the biggest challenges might be learning about the new community. So what happens when you're a new teacher at the University of Vermont? How do you get a much needed introduction to the state of Vermont? Here's Across the Fence's Keith Silva with our story.
Sunshine and blue skies. Perfect weather to visit Vermont.
Best first day of work ever.
The annual University of Vermont New Faculty Tour brings the latest crop of UVM educators off campus and on the road to visit Vermont's people and places. The tour is hosted by UVM Extension.
I love these tours. Vermonters are very forthcoming with sharing their experiences and what they do and what makes them unique, and it's almost impossible not to learn something new every time you go out and visit with a Vermonter. And as an extension professional, it's my job and my colleagues' job to help bring the value of the university to the community and the people of the state.
The tour includes stops at dairy and vegetable farms and visits to value-added agricultural businesses. Participants learn about the latest technology and the best management practices farmers use to grow their operations. The goal is to show the close connection between the UVM campus and communities in Vermont.
Some say there's only half a degree of separation between any two Vermonters, and that actually can serve us well. It enables us to share information, understand each other, collaborate more effectively, get things done, be the first in class on innovation. And we see that time and time again in Vermont in any number of arenas. And that's what we do, and we can do it oftentimes better because of our connectivity.
So you'll see all our fall crops growing there, like carrots and beets and cabbage.
Emily Morgan is a new arrival in Vermont, with an emphasis on new.
How long have you been in Vermont?
I have been in Vermont about 14 hours, maybe a little longer. We arrived about 10:30 last night.
Morgan will be teaching in UVM's Nutrition and Food Sciences department. This tour gives her an insider's view into Vermont agriculture, which will come in handy when she starts her new job.
I think that so much of what we've seen and what we've heard has been incredibly helpful. Learning about a little bit about the migrant farm workers in the state, working across the state in agriculture, learning about the diversity of Vermont's agriculture, learning about how different sectors of the agricultural economy contribute to community development in the state. It's all been wonderful, and I can see so many intersections with the type of work that I do.
Unlike Morgan, this isn't Travis Reynolds' first time in Vermont. He's been living out of state, but grew up in Stannard in the Northeast Kingdom, where his family runs a sugaring operation.
There's a whole nother set of skills that are required.
This is a homecoming. I'm a new faculty member in community development and applied economics. I've been outside Vermont for about 12 years now, in Seattle, Washington, and in Maine. And this just seemed like a good opportunity to spend a day talking with farmers.
Growing up in Vermont means Reynolds has seen and tasted some of what this tour has to offer. But as a teacher, he knows there's always more to learn.
We're from the Northeast Kingdom. We don't spend a whole lot of time touring this part of the state. It's very, very different. There's a lot of value also to the network of people on the bus over here. These are faculty members from all kinds of different departments who, on a big university campus, I might not have never met. But these are the people who self-selected to spend an entire day looking at farms and talking with farmers and learning about agriculture. It's a good way to start this job.
Ross believes this exchange of ideas between people who otherwise might not meet is the most welcome aspect of this tour.
They come to understand what makes this state special in ways they might not if they weren't on the tour, and they get to see how the university could be connected to these communities. And depending upon their role at the university, they may identify how they, in their role at the university, is connected to the rest of the state, how they can add value not only to the community, but to the community add value to the university.
Yeah, we do beef's our main thing.
After a day full of conversations and presentations, Emily Morgan, remember, she's only been in Vermont less than 24 hours, is already starting to sound like she's lived here her whole life.
There are few things that I find more fun to do on a beautiful day than go visit farms, truly. So it's been perfect. This has been perfect.
A perfect day and a perfect way for these new Vermonters to feel at home. In Jericho, I'm Keith Silva with Across the Fence.
Thank you, Keith. Joining me now in the studio is Associate Director and Chair of UVM Extension, Dan Lerner. Thanks so much for coming in.
Oh, thank you.
Now, we just heard from some of the new faculty members, but what about your perspective on this tour? Why does UVM Extension do this?
Well, it's a great opportunity, as you heard in the film, for some of the new faculty to meet each other, but for us to show them some of the working landscape that's a very important part of Vermont. Most of these folks are not from Vermont, so as they come to start their careers at UVM, we want to show them a little bit about what happens off campus. It's a good opportunity for us to explain how we work with communities and how we work with partners, and we may be able to work with some of them as partners as they grow in their work.
So Extension is uniquely qualified to do this job?
I think so. We have offices all around the state and over 100 staff and faculty members doing this kind of work. We put together research, education, and outreach, and we are well set up to show people who we work with and what the value of it is.
Mm-hmm. And so what is Extension's impact statewide?
Well, it's pretty significant. Impact is important to us because we're publicly funded. So we have about a $21 million budget in any given year, and that's a combination of federal tax dollars, state tax dollars, grant dollars, a little bit of philanthropy, and a little bit of fees. So we're very careful to make sure that we're using those resources in a way that's meaningful. We have in any given year a couple of thousand of volunteers who put in tens of thousands of hours working with Vermont citizens, often with a lot of kids, which is really wonderful. And in addition to that, the specialties that we offer play right into what's really, really important to Vermonters: agricultural, natural resources, youth and families, community development, nutrition. All of these things matter.
And I know that in that film that we just saw, the professors were really impressed with how open the farmers were to having them come visit and see what they do.
They were, and I was really pleased to see that. We know, because we work with these people, that the farmers are typically wonderful, and they want to show what they do, why it matters, how they protect the natural environment when they grow their crops, and it's terrific they're able to show that.
And so one of Extension's most obvious impacts is on food and the food business. Yeah. Tell us about that.
Well, we work with a lot of different food producers in the state. So a few examples that might be interesting to know about. One is Heather Darby, who's an agronomist working for us out of the St. Albans area, has done some wonderful research over the years around grains and worked with the Northwest Growers Association, Grain Growers Association, to do that, to the point that Vermont grain growers are able to provide companies like Red Hen Bakery in Middlesex with the grain they need to do specific runs of bread products. And that starts with us doing that research. Chris Callahan is an ag engineer based out of our Bennington office. He's done a lot of different projects of interest, but one of them was with Wilcox Dairy in Arlington, which produces ice cream. And Chris was their consultant on a relatively new facility they have on refrigeration and cooling. And then another might be Omar Oyarzabal, who's a microbiologist working with us in the area of food safety. And up in Milton, Vermont, Boves, which creates spaghetti sauce and related things, he's consulted with them to make sure that they're doing that in a way that's food safe and complies with the FDA.
That's wonderful. I mean, there are a lot of different aspects. You talk about Heather Darby. I know there's an experimental farm that checks out some of her work. Yeah. And I talked to the farmer there and I said, why are you planting this particular crop? And he said, Heather Darby told me to. so that's how much that they rely on that kind of research.
They do. So for Extension, it's important to conduct research with partners, relate the results of others' research to people who can use it, and show people what it means, how they can use it in their own farm to their own benefit.
So some people have been surprised to learn that Vermont's new required agricultural practices are not just for dairy farms. Right. What's Extension doing to help with that?
Well, you're absolutely right. It isn't just for dairy farms. So the required ag practices are the way that the state of Vermont can help corral good practices on farms that are good for natural resources reasons and keep nutrients right where we need them to be and not flowing into our rivers and lakes. And it isn't just for dairy farmers, it's for produce growers as well. So one of the things we do is nutrient management planning classes for farmers who grow fruit and vegetables. We teach them how to make a plan and then how to do the plan and offer some hands-on expertise as well.
And which is really important because you can save farmers a lot of money by having a system in place that you know works.
That's true. So we try to do a lot of different things that will take a little bit of the risk away from farmers. We trial different things and then show others how to use it.
Now, during the summer, Across the Fence highlighted a new manure injection spreader that was purchased by Extension's Champlain Valley Crops and Soils team. We have some video of this injector now. It's massive. Look at this demonstration. This is what it actually looks like. Why invest in such a machine?
Well, it's an expensive piece of equipment,
yes,
but it can do a lot of good. So that particular piece of equipment was purchased with a grant from the Agency of Ag's Clean Water Fund, which is another example of the kind of partnership we have with the state of Vermont. So we used that grant to purchase this and to trial it and see how it works for farmers. Again, we want to take some of the risk out of adopting new technologies, and manure injection is definitely a new technology. So rather than spreading it on the ground, we're punching it just under the ground. That could be expensive, and we want to help farmers mitigate that cost.
And so, and some of the early feedback has been really positive about that.
Absolutely, absolutely, it has, because farmers can see the immediate benefits. What we're after with things like manure injection and other kinds of practices is to do conservation work and good farming work all at the same time. Better yields, which bring farmers more revenue, while also conserving the land on which they work.
Because for farmers, it is all about the bottom line. And so, you know, they're trying to figure out, okay, this piece of equipment is expensive and it costs this, but boy, if I do the math and think down the line, it increases my yield, then it makes sense.
It does. And if we've bought the equipment and we show them how to use it and help them to do it, that helps their bottom line as well.
There's another piece of equipment, too, that we want to talk about, the Do-Right. Tell us about the Do-Right.
Well, Chris Callahan, our ag engineer, invented this device that measures humidity and temperature in very high humidity environments, like greenhouses, like coolers, where it's really important to measure humidity precisely so that crops don't spoil. So Chris invented the device and got a patent, and a small company in Virgins named Vermont Energy Control Systems has licensed it. And so now they're producing the device for sale to producers.
And it was an interesting collaboration too, because these are two gentlemen that, you know, were retired, and then they found this and they started working on it, and it's really taken off.
It really has, and I think that it's another good example of the way we're able to partner with small business, and that Chris and these two gentlemen that you mentioned basically speak the same language about how to make something simple, that's going to work well, that no one else has thought of, and it's going to be affordable to the people who buy it.
And it's really affordable too.
It is. It is. I think it's just a couple $100s.
Yeah, which is amazing. All right, on a recent program I spoke with the UVM Sea Grant and Watershed Alliance about education opportunities for Vermont's K through 12 students. Tell us about some of the programming that's available for kids.
Sure. Well, the Sea Grant at UVM is another example of a partnership with UVM Extension. We have faculty and staff working inside that program. So there's really two big things. One is called Keeping the Balance. The other is called Lake Champlain Live. And these are bodies of activities, programs if you will, where young people can learn all about the lake itself, whether it's lake ecology, biodiversity, pollution, the natural history of the lake, and then they can learn some real skills like how do you take a water sample in a way that's going to be useful and meaningful for scientific research.
And I was talking to some of the folks involved, and they said it was just so critical for the kids to get out of the classroom to learn these things.
That's exactly right, and Watershed Alliance does that. So we bring students onto the Melisira, but Watershed Alliance also goes to schools on site and can bring them to nearby rivers where they will literally stand in the water out of their classroom and see the things that we want them to see.
Which makes a huge impact. It makes a much bigger impact than maybe just reading something in a book.
Absolutely. Hands-on learning is really important, not just for kids. That's the way we work with all folks.
And so this is an example of kids maybe sparking that interest in them that maybe wasn't there before, because they can actually see these things and get their hands on them.
They can, and you never know. You might just find that you've got a young person who grows up being aware and interested in the environment, but then again, maybe you have a new scientist who's just getting started, and maybe this is the experience that sends them down that path.
What's the best way for viewers to learn more about extension programs or to contact you if they have any questions?
Well, we have a website, uvm.edu/extension, and our toll-free number I think is on the screen right now. Could always email me at dan.lerner@uvm.edu.
You know, we talked a little bit about 4-H, but I think it's really important to obviously put a plug in for 4-H, but also say that the volunteers make it happen.
They do. When it comes to 4-H, when it comes to Master Gardener and a host of other programs, the volunteers are crucial.
And you're always looking for more.
Absolutely.
All right. Dan, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
That's our program for today. I'm Judy Simpson. We'll see you again next time on Across the Fence.